Rhonda Sousley is our guest speaker tonight. Interestingly, a neighbor lady who lives just down the street, about 4 or 5 houses. We never knew one another until, what, a year or so ago?
Yeah.
And very esoteric, and studied Chinese acupuncture in China for 3 years. For 3 years. And she's going to give us insights tonight in what we call esoteric acupuncture. It should be a very interesting lecture for all of those who are interested in healing. And I'm sure she'll have some powerful and new insights into the subject. So let's welcome Rhonda this evening. So Rhonda, take it away.
Well, I'm going to start us off with another Qigong exercise. And so if you want to stand up for a second, we're going to get everyone in the mood here.
Okay.
And I don't know if any of you remember when you were young and if you were a waiter or waitress, but we're going to serve tea this evening. Okay. So it's kind of easiest if you mirror me. So you might want to try this side, but the whole goal is you do not want to spill your tea. Okay. So you're going to take your tea and you're going to move out, and they're going to come down in front of you and around. Don't spill your tea now. And they're going to go up over the top. Got that? Okay, so you start. I saw some teacups flip over. Okay, so down and around, underneath, and you're going to get this nice motion as you go around. It's not spilling your tea, keeping it up. There you go. Perfect. You guys got that? It kind of goes around.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to change direction.
Oh my gosh.
So we're going to go over the top of your head and then around underneath. This is like a snake in the Chinese thing. So we're moving all the chi. We're getting all the meridians going. You're breathing as you go. All right, good. Now, what would a Qigong exercise be if we didn't do the other side? So switch sides. First one to go out away from the body, then down, around, and over the top. I see some really good waiters and waitresses. No tea is spilling at all. Over the top. Oh, I love it. You got it here. One more time. All right, now let's reverse. So okay, back toward the center. Gonna go around. Oh, I'm stuck here. Okay, everybody got that?
That was good.
All right, we get you all loosened up. All right, perfect. Thank you. We got our chi flowing. All right, well, have a seat.
Here's your bill.
Yeah.
We could practice
So do I need to
whole
sit?
week.
Yeah, you can stand. It's up to you.
So we're going to talk a little bit about some Chinese medicine theories. Last time we talked a lot about qi and the energy, and it flows through the body and how it works with acupuncture. But we're going to get a little bit more into the Chinese medicine. And starting from the basics, you've all seen this symbol, right?
Yes.
And anyone have ideas as to what the symbol means?
Balance.
Balance, harmony. We have white and black. We have day,
Positive, negative.
negative.
Duality.
We have day and night. We have duality. We have the whole, the duality being encompassed by the two. We have some of the dark within the light, so that there's no absolutes. But this is also a symbol of transformation. And so if you look at the symbol, it's a symbol, first of all, of movement, because it's not a stagnant symbol. It is moving. And in the body, things are moving and changing all the time. You don't want things to just stop and be stagnant. So we want the movement. And if you think about it, if you're going to, for instance, stir a can, some cement or something heavy, a can of paint, and you're going round and round clockwise, right? How are you going to change direction? If you want to stop and push it back the other way, it's going to take a lot of effort.
Okay.
So if you're going round and round, if you go right through the middle, you change direction, right? So it is a symbol of transformation, transformation and moving. And in Chinese theory, it's interesting because they say anything too cold gets hot and anything too hot gets cold. So these are transforming into one another. So if you think about it, I remember years ago I was playing tennis and it was 90 degrees out. It was a stupid thing to do, but you get all hot and sweaty and all of a sudden I started to get cold. Because you start getting heat stroke, heat exhaustion, you get so hot, you start to get chilled. Or if you've had a sunburn or something like that at night, you get chilled because your body, you're getting so hot that it will turn back into cold. Or you've heard of freezer burn. Or if you're putting ice or something on your skin, you can actually burn your skin from, cryogenics or for something that's so cold. So we are moving with that symbol of transformation. And speaking of transformation, I love this. The skin that you're sitting on is only about 4 weeks old.
Oh, boy.
Isn't that amazing? Like, why isn't it like a baby's skin?
Right.
Your stomach lining is your stomach lining is only about 5 days old.
Whoa.
But you get new rods and cones in your retina every 48 hours.
Wow.
Your liver's only 5 months old. Your nervous system is 8 months old. Your bones are about a year old. And 98% of the atoms in your body are replaced every year. 98% of your body is replaced. It's constantly moving, it's constantly flowing and changing. So you have a completely new body about every 7 years. And right now you have 100 trillion cells performing some 400 billion chemical reactions each second.
Wow.
Involving around 100,000 complex macromolecules. It just amazes me, the complex system, the body, the miracle that we are, the skin that we're living in. And just to talk a little bit about atoms, I happen to be a Wolverine, so I had to put an M in there. I know the Spartans aren't too happy, but to understand a little bit about the Chinese theory and Qi and how acupuncture works, I want to talk a little bit about atoms. So if you think about an atom, we're made up of carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen, and hydrogen, other things. If you take an atom, say one carbon atom, and you blow it up to the size of a football field, they are composed of neutrons, protons, and electrons, right? So this whole thing is one carbon atom. If you place the proton and the neutron together, it would be the size of a basketball right in the middle of that M. That's how much space there is in an atom. And the electrons would be flies that are buzzing around the top tier, which gives you an idea of how much space there is in any molecule, in any atom, in every part of nature. So really, we're made up of space. And what is it why don't those electrons just float off and go off to another molecule or another atom? What is it that holds everything together? What is it that holds that space? We're going to find out that space is not emptiness, according to Thich Nhat Hanh. We're here to awaken from our illusion of separateness. So once you start looking at this space and how these atoms and molecules work, now we're moving out of standard Newtonian physics and we're moving into quantum. And we had a great lecture on the whole quantum physics and field theory and everything else. So really, we are living in a field. These atoms and space and everything is held together in a field. And there are many different types of fields, like a gravitational field, there's electromagnetic fields, and we're held together essentially by an etheric field. So this is the scaffolding, or this is the space, this is what the scaffolding that the body is built on, is the ethers and the etheric field. And we we like to think now that there are 4 elements in nature: earth, fire, wind, and water. That's pretty common science right now. But in the past, all of the ancient cultures, the Greeks, the Romans, all the ancient cultures believed that there were 5 elements. It was the same earth, air, water, and fire, but they all believed in ether. And I thought, what the heck? I know of an etheric field, but how did they define ether? What is it? And they said it is the space. It is the space that holds everything together. It is the field. So back in 1888, there were a couple physicists that did an experiment with light, and they were going to try and disprove the ether, and they couldn't find anything. They couldn't scientifically measure the etheric field. So they said it doesn't exist. So our science has dropped it, unfortunately. But all the ancient cultures did believe in the ether. So I had to look up the definition. And according to Webster, they say it's a rarefied element formerly, because we don't believe it anymore, believed to fill up the upper regions of space. So again, it's something that holds the space. And they also relate it to the heavens, which I thought was interesting. And then I looked up what the more spiritual meaning of ether is. And that is the element that connects us to spirit, intuition, and to the other realms and planes. So it's our etheric field that would connect us, and it connects us to one another as well. Now, bless you. When you get into the science of it, the scientists want to believe that it is the connective tissue that is the real scaffolding of the body, and where the messages are sent, where atoms and molecules talk to each other, where reactions occur, where the energy is sent through the body. So I don't know if the connective tissue overlays the etheric, or the etheric is within the connective tissue. Nobody really knows. A lot of this is kind of theory and the new kind of science. But I happened to find this picture from a Theosophy page. Just the different light bodies. And, of course, spirit, mental body, and astral, emotional bodies. The etheric body, they relate to the chakras. Orgone and prana, they're saying is different, actually, than the ethers. The soft electrons, and they had the whole, range of light frequencies and vibrations. The infrared, and then they kind of group together anything that falls within a field, and that affects the body through a field, which is microwave, scalars, that's kind of a heat therapy, ultrasound, radio waves, ELF, and how it affects the body differently. But we also tend to look at the 3, the 3 phases: gases, liquids, solids.
3 properties.
Yeah, I know their properties. There's another
Oh,
3
forms.
states, forms. Yeah. But beyond that, you would say the ether is the 4th form. So let's apply this to the Chinese theory and how they look at the human body. And the Chinese also have a 5-point theory of the body. And you have to remember that they did not do autopsies. So they have a very poetic look of how the body operates and everything else. It's totally different than Western science. So you have to leave your Western science brain behind because it is different. They have their own way of expressing things. And well, it's a little blurry, but this is the 5-element theory. So they believe that there are 5 main organ systems, and each organ system relates to some part of nature. So I'm going to start here with water. Water relating to the kidneys. That makes perfect sense, right? And the properties associated with the kidneys are, number 1, gentleness, and also fear.
Mm.
And if you think about it, if someone is frightened enough, they will lose control of their bladder. And if someone is frightened, the best way to help them is to gentle them. You don't want to say, come on, buck up, let's go. You want to gentle them. Everything's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. And that's, you're working through the energy of the kidneys. So the water then creates wood. And the wood is the element of the liver. And I should say also that the color blue, this is winter time. So the winter, the cold, ice, as it turns into wood is spring. So our livers are being activated now as springtime comes. And the element wood, or the liver, has to do with anger and kindness. So if you think of someone, if you think of a drunk, sometimes they can get very angry. They can, fights or brawls break out because of the anger. But there are drunks who are also very kind. They can leave big tips and they can, do wonderful things. And if someone is angry, the way to dispel that is with kindness. I'm sorry we lost your order. Let me give you a discount on the next one. That type of thing. So the wood then creates fire, which is the summertime, the heat. And that is of the heart, of course, because that is our heat, that is our blood, that is what warms the body. And the associated emotions of the heart are, of course, love and, of course, cruelty. And love is self-evident, but they say really we only hurt the ones we love. We can be most cruel to the ones we love, or if our heart feels hurt, we can strike back and be cruel. And I've seen families just go at it and they're so mean to each other, and a stranger will walk by and oh, hello. They're the nicest to the strangers, but not to their own, loved ones. Yeah. So fire then creates earth in the form of ash, and earth is of the stomach. In Chinese medicine, they call it that it's more the pancreas, the spleen. They say the spleen is what actually does the digesting. The stomach is just a vessel for
Storage.
bringing food in and for appetite. So and that is more a late summer, as we're getting, the leaves are starting to turn and all. That's the season, and there really isn't strong emotions. But the stomach, the spleen is more related to balance and harmony. And the best way I can explain that is if a person is stuck in the parasympathetic response, that fight or flight response, and they're upset and they can't get out of it, if you just sit down and have a cup of tea and have something to eat, is the best way to get them out of that parasympathetic response quickly. And it was very, very grounding. It's very harmonizing to have something, to have that earth element. Now the Chinese don't particularly look at ether. They call it metal. It's a similar concept. It's kind of a metal field. I think of it as electrical wires, but they call it more metal. And metal more relates to the lungs, and which is late summer into fall, and that's when it's starting to get cold. It's windy. We get more respiratory type disorders, and the lungs have to do with courage and depression. So if someone is courage and they're going to go into battle, they're going to take a deep breath and pump out their chest and they're ready to go. And if a person is very depressed and sad, they're gonna collapse and they're gonna weep, and their lungs are compressed. So if someone is depressed, you need to show them some strength. Come on, let's take a walk. We're gonna work through this. Come on, we need to get going. If you gentle them, you're just gonna wallow in there, with them. So Earth creates metal in the Chinese system because metal ores are contained within the earth. And then it's a little bit of a reach, but if you melt metals, or you can create water, or there are metal elements in the water, but then you get the full cycle. And when we're doing treatments and looking at how the body is working, there are two main cycles. The generative cycle that we just went through, how earth creates metal, creates water, they help each other out. So if someone, for instance, if their heart is weak, I might look to the liver and to build up the liver, because the liver will in turn help to build strength in the heart. So it's a whole cycle of how you would treat and how the points you would choose. But there's also another type of cycle where they overcome one another. So for instance, we'll start with fire. Fire will melt metal. Metal will cut down trees or wood. Wood will break up earth, because the roots will go in and tear up the earth. And earth will muddy up water. So these are ways of, they call it constraining. So if let's say, for instance, a person has too much wood, too much liver, they're upset, we need to calm the liver, we might use metal or the lungs to calm that down, because it restrains it. So there are different cycles in how the body works. You can work to engender it, you can work to restrain it. So it's kind of a complicated system in how this all works. And there are also times that each of the organs and systems are active. So there's a 24-hour clock, and different systems are active at different times. So at noon, your heart is active, you want to eat, you're starting to get lunch. Small intestines, you're absorbing your food. By 4 p.m., the bladder's starting to release, and then the nutrients are being stored in the bones through the kidneys. So there's a whole system, of when you might treat a certain organ system and how this all fits together. And I won't go through all the details of the whole thing. But really, the whole point of acupuncture and any of these forms of medicine is energy and vibration. So by using the needles to access the etheric field, to access the energy and the vibration of the body, is how we're bringing it into balance. A lot of it is intent. A lot of it is knowing which cycle you want to work with, the timing you want to work with, where the body is out of balance, and which frequencies and things you want to work with. So I want to give you a couple things to think of to take home with you.
Great.
And a couple acupuncture points that might be helpful. And the first one is a very powerful point that's right under the nose. And this point is used for fainting. So I'm told that this is the most painful piercing in the body, because there are so many nerves right at the lower nose. If someone's ever been hit in the face or punched in the nose, it will stop you. A lot of nerves there. So if someone is feeling weak or dizzy, I have a niece that cannot give blood. She will pass out every time. So we had to give her peppermint oil to take with her. And as long as she pinched and touched this part of her nose, she's fine. So if someone is feeling weak, you can tap on that or work on that. It's a really good point. There's a very well-known and common point in the hand, large intestine 4, they call it. And this is the point for headaches, for face pain. So there's a bone that runs through the index finger. It is halfway in between, and it's pretty close to the bone there. So if you press on that, you'll feel a sore spot. Sometimes people will put their hand together and they go at a high point there in the middle. We're right in the middle of that bone. And it's a very powerful point. Like I said, we use this for headaches. if I'm at the dentist and they have to do anything, I'll sit there and I'll press on this point. It's for face pain. It's for a lot of different pain in the body. So that's another really good point to know. Another headache point or point that's also really important is at the occiput on either side here where the bones protrude. And if you're tired or your vision is getting tired, your eyes are strained or tired, you're driving, you can tap on those points. You can rub those points. Almost every acupuncture point, you'll feel some discomfort, some pain. I mean, you'll know you're on the right point because you'll feel it. So that's another really, really powerful point. What else here? There another point, obviously the yin tang, they call the third eye. It's good for a lot of different things. Again, if you're tired, if you need to wake up, if you need to focus or concentrate, that's another really powerful point. And the one on the bottom of the foot, is that's what grounds you to the earth, that kidney point. And there are Chinese exercises, I'm going to show you, but it's right in the ball, between the ball of the foot, right in here. And if you, so right there between the large mound there, and they will even hit it. This will, the kidneys rule the lower body, they rule the back, they rule everything. Obviously they rule the kidneys, but to get that point energized is really important because you want to be able to ground, you want to be able to bring that energy up through the body. So that's another really, really important point. And for back pain, believe it or not, there are points, a lot of people tell me that they feel the pain in the middle of their back. And almost always it's on the side. It's where the muscle attaches. So if you're, even if they're feeling it in the back, it's a hand width on either side of the spine. Okay, so rubbing in there, and believe it or not, that will release a lot of the pain throughout the back, which is really, really nice to know, really powerful. So I also wanted to mention that the Chinese New Year started on February 1st. It always is the end of January, beginning of February. And this is the year of the water tiger. It is a very powerful year. And the water tiger only comes around once every 60 years. So this is a year of power, boldness. This is go big or go home. So these are big things that are going to happen worldwide. These are big things that are going to happen in people's lives. And I don't know if people know their own Chinese animal or whatever, but just basically the ones that are going to have the best year are the ox, the horse, the dog, and the pig.
Okay.
Yay.
So yeah, we got a couple. Yeah, they're gonna have really good big
great.
years as
You go,
things.
girl.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny. If you don't know your year, I can tell you or your animal.
Well, you
But-
can find it.
Yeah, you can find it. I know it's kind of busy, but
That's interesting. So I should
yeah.
expect a very great year.
Yeah, it should be. It's gonna be a big bold year.
Okay.
And I always thought, well,
Okay.
it's the tiger year, therefore it's the tiger's gonna have a great year. Not necessarily. Sometimes the animal that year is represented is really challenged. So the tigers might have a little bit more of a challenge this year than they would expect. So that's about all I had, unless you guys have any questions.
So what to think about it?
Do you know what the Chinese would say about like the lymph system?
You know, the Chinese don't recognize the lymph. They don't, and they don't recognize any endocrine glands. They don't recognize the thyroid. They don't recognize, anything like that. It's a good question. They would recognize if there's a stagnation or a sluggishness of energy, which could be the lymph, backing up. They would recognize it in a different way. Just like they don't recognize chakras either. The chakras are an East Indian system. And interestingly enough, there happen to be major acupuncture points at all of the main chakras, but they don't recognize them as a separate system. I don't know why. Yeah.
So you're saying that there is an ether,
Mhm.
it's a field?
And ether is what holds the space. It's what connects the space, and therefore it is a field. Yes. It's an etheric field.
Interesting.
Yes.
Is it like a matrix? You know how they got that kind of
I think, David, you probably know more from the
Yeah, the ancients
philosophical.
called it the anima
Yes.
mundi of the world.
Mhm. Which is like the fabric of the
Yeah,
world. Is that what you would
it's
say?
a web
Yeah.
of
Mhm.
etheric material. One of the great Indian chiefs, I think it was Chief Seattle, said that man did not weave the web of life, he is but a strand within it.
Mm.
Whatever he does to the web, he does to himself. And that's what the ancients claimed by the anima mundi, which is the etheric matrix that exists. Our bodies have an etheric counterpart to the physical body.
Mhm.
Everything does. So the etheric penetrates everything.
Yes. I
That's
think
what
of it as
the-
like the scaffolding
Yeah,
that the body is built
exactly.
upon.
And they call it, you said in your lecture,
Mhm.
scaffold.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I have a question. I'm curious, did the macrobiotic diet, did that come out of Chinese medicine?
That is Japanese.
That's right, that's
Yeah,
Japanese.
so
You're
they
right,
don't.
you're right.
It's a good question though, because the Chinese do believe in eating according to your body type, eating according to any malady or issue that you have,
Mhm.
but specifically eating according to the seasons
Right.
and whatever is locally grown. So for instance, in Michigan, it's cold, and things that grow here are apples and grown root vegetables and things like that, and they're warming. If you're eating oranges and things that don't grow here, oranges are very cooling. So if you're eating those in the winter, you're actually working against your chi. And the same thing in the summer, you get salads and fresh vegetables, and you get more fruits. Those are very cooling to keep the body
Yeah.
cool. So they do believe in balancing
Yeah,
maybe the food.
it sounds very
Right.
similar. It
It
sounds
is
very
similar.
similar in the, probably the yin and the yang. Too,
Yes.
the yin and the yang foods.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Randy.
Do they ever connect electricity to the needles themselves?
Absolutely. Yes.
Can you talk, is it like a positive or a negative? Or
Yeah, we
do you ground one side of the body and then put a positive on a needle?
because chi is considered electromagnetic. No, it's bioelectromagnetic.
Bio.
So by
Easy.
placing the needles, you're affecting the bioelectric field and flow of the body. So we have a way of connecting little electrodes to the needles. And what it does is it just gives it a much stronger treatment. It leads the chi. So you can, if someone has a painful point, you can put one, however you're doing your treatment, on one side of the electrode there, and you draw it out to another one. But it also, it helps the muscle fibers. You're stimulating nerves. You're doing all sorts of other things as well. But it just intensifies the chi flowing, and it will lead it in a certain direction. Does that make sense?
I guess it does.
Yeah.
You're the authority.
Yeah, good question though. Yeah.
I have a question. Years ago, I saw what I thought was a really esoteric use of acupuncture where a Chinese doctor put like a ball of herbs on the end of the needle and then lit it.
Mhm.
And could you explain to us what that's all about? I actually thought I had intuited what it was. I may be right, but I'd like to hear your explanation.
Yeah, and you'll see this in Steven Seagal movies.
Mhm.
We do this a lot. It's a Chinese herb called mugwort,
Mhm.
and it's a very powerful herb. And what they will do is there are many different ways you can apply the herb, but they can take a piece of it, roll it up, and put it on top of a needle and then light it. And what it does is it warms the needle, but it also, the energy of the herb penetrates
Mhm.
through the needle to convey to the body.
Mhm.
So it's it's a wonderful treatment. It works really well. You can actually just hold, they have these cigar looking things too, filled with mugwort, and you can hold them over certain spots.
Mhm.
We do a lot of that in China. It's very, very common, very powerful. Typically, we don't do that in the United States for several reasons. Is number one, it smells a lot like marijuana, and you don't want people calling the police on you. Number two, if people have respiratory issues, it's very smoky, fills the room. So if an asthmatic or someone comes in after that, they can't handle the smoke. And you have to have proper ventilation to do it. But number three, it's really easy for the herb to fall off the needle and burn someone.
Mhm.
So it's very, very rare that we do it in this country, unfortunately, because it's a wonderful.
I have another question
Is that what it
related
was?
to that. Have you ever known them to use herbs other than mugwort?
Not to burn.
No.
I'm not familiar with that. No, they may, but no, I'm not familiar with that. They will even, if someone is really cold, they'll even fill your navel with salt and put a piece of it, a piece of the burning part of it in the navel, and it just warms the whole area. It's really nice.
Is it called mock Sebastian?
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
technique.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that done here. I
Good.
had Dr. do it on me. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yes. It's very powerful. It's good. And there's certain techniques, if you're trying to, say, turn a baby, there's certain issues that work really, really well with mock Sebastian. So, yeah.
Interesting.
In China, there are techniques, they will actually, they're scarring techniques. They will actually put it right on the skin and burn you. And, finding ways to move the chi and to fix things.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah, exactly. And there are a number of manual therapies we would do with with cupping and everything else. I think we talked about some of that last time. So
Is there pressure, like just your fingers? Like, do you do things other than the needles? Do you do things with your fingertips?
you can do, there's acupressure. You can hold an acupuncture point. Typically, they will hold, say, 2 points at a time to draw the energy, draw the chi, or to, again, that engendering cycle where you want to help one organ system through another, things like that. You're using your body as the conduit. So you can do that. I don't do much of that because it's much easier to put all the needles in at once, and then everything gets flowing. Because if you're just standing there holding 2 at a time, it takes forever to get the same results. But in Japanese style acupuncture, many times they will just hold a needle to the skin. They don't even penetrate the skin. They'll just hold it there. And they believe in using different metals. So they might have one that is gold or gold plated. They might have a silver one, a copper one. So the energy and the frequency of the metal just held to the point they'll use. Or they'll just barely touch, just barely penetrate the skin. So there are a lot of different ways of affecting the points, depending on what you're after.
Yeah, my question that I ask about the using other herbs other than mugwort is that somewhere, I don't know where. Could have been in the astral world for all I know, but I remember knowing that the different herbs had a different atomic vibration, and that when you burnt the different herbs at the tip of the head of the needle, that it had a positive effect in healing. That they were different herbs. It wasn't just mugwort. There were actually, I don't remember what all they were, but I remember that there was a correlation for healing with other herbs. I always thought it was fascinating and really very interesting. Would make a lot of sense from that and from the standpoint too of quantum physics.
Mhm,
See,
mhm.
so you could draw correlations.
It's a good point because they do assign or they do understand the various properties of the herbs.
Mhm.
And when they're making a formula, they would look at whether an herb is warming, whether it's cooling,
Mhm.
but they also look at which organ system, which of the 5 organ systems the herb is most likely to affect. So there are herbs for the liver, there are herbs for the heart, there are herbs for the stomach. And then there are herbs, they call them, what is it, the governor, the lieutenant. So one herb would direct another herb and one herb would control this group of herbs.
Mhm.
It's kind of the energetic way of how they function.
Mhm.
And they would never give you just, well, I shouldn't say never, but rarely would they give you just one herb because it's going to throw the body out of balance. They blend together these beautiful tapestries of herbs that will affect a certain organ, and some are neutral, some are warming. There's a general in there to lead them, and it's a whole system of how they assign the properties to the herbs. So that would make sense if they're burning different ones in different needles. Yeah.
Yeah, with most Chinese herbal formulas, there's like a lot of different herbs in one
Yes.
formula.
Yes.
They work synergistically, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite an art. And
It
they always
is.
taste like swamp water, unfortunately, but
Just the way it is.
I know, but they're good for you. So
Yeah.
it's
Take
okay.
it down fast.
I know. People always come back and say, do you have a pill for this? Yeah. All right, well, thank you. very
All right, well,
much.
thank you, Rhonda.
Is it too late for a question?
Okay, we got question time.
Rhonda, I would like to know if you have a pressure point for arrhythmia.
There's a number of pressure points. One of the most powerful heart points is in the wrist. And it's along the outside of the wrist, right at the crease.
Okay.
So that's one that we use a lot. And another one you can do, and this is, I guess it's another good one to know, is right at the little finger on either corner, you can pinch. If someone is having a heart attack or is having trouble, in China, they will bite that. They'll bite down right on either side of the nail. And they say that that will affect the heart. So pinching on either corner of the little finger.
Either hand.
Either hand.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very
you're welcome.
interesting. Yeah. Anybody else have a question out there in the Zoom meeting? Well, okay, I guess that's it for tonight, folks. We want to
Thank
thank
you.
Rhonda.
Thank you.
And we can head up to the living room.